Peace, love, and blessings. Welcome to DMT Journal, Lucid Dreams and Spiritual Stories. I'm your host, Sean, and down the line I'll figure out something better that you can call me. I had another channel that is based on a completely different genre and algorithm. It's more on the entertainment factor of things. So over there I'm a content creator, I'm a blogger, and I'm a battle rapper, just to put it just bluntly honest. I'm a battle rapper. But lately, it's been my calling to exchange information on a more positive note. So even though I got 1,400 subscribers over there and I got a lot of traction, I want to step outside of my algorithm and do things that is a bit more to my caliber of things. You get what I'm saying? Basically, the type of information that I want to spread, which is positive information. So that said, allow me to give a brief description on what the channel is and what I intend it to be about moving forward. Again, I'm an active battle rapper, but I'm also spiritually agnostic. I grew up a Baptist, and throughout the years, I've had countless spiritual experiences, some that correlated with Christianity, others that correlated to what you hear about in the stories of ayahuasca, DMT, psychedelic drugs, even near-death experiences, astral projections, lucid dreams, and etc., etc. So this channel is for subjective stories on natural and intentionally induced DMT trips, lucid dreams, daydreams, premonitions, trance states, weed and other drug experiences, and other supernatural experiences and or phenomena. This is for educational purposes only and in no way paints any form of propaganda, nor does it force any truths. The host of this channel, me, though spiritually agnostic, believes in a divine God and grew up following the teachings of baptism. This is just a platform to share experiences that may provide help or closure to those who experience similar things. I do not, and I'm going to repeat that, I do not promote the use of drugs or any mind-altering practices. This is all just for entertainment. So, to give a brief background, I'm 25 years old. I'll be 26 July 29th, which is 2 months from now. And I've been having paranormal experiences my entire life, whether they manifested in the form of premonitions, voices in my head, lucid dreams, flat out natural DMT trips, which have always been, to this point, I'm going to reiterate, which have always been natural trips, never induced. I have never taken or consumed the drug known as DMT, dimethyltryptamine. But I've had the exact same experiences that I've done tons of research about to make sure that I was accurate on what I was hearing, because when I hear these trips and when I hear the common themes and messages from it, it brings me back to a specific place. And okay, so I have to really break down how this all started. The very first conscious experience that I can remember, and I've told countless people this, so lots of people can back up this claim. I remember being from another place. It was not a physical realm. It was very similar to the hyperspace that you hear about on those breakthrough doses of DMT, where there's just lots of sporadic information going on, but at the same time, it felt like home. It felt like that's where I belonged. And excuse the phone vibrations. I forgot to put on Do Not Disturb. So let me do that real fast. Okay, done. So I tell everybody, I remember being delivered here for my very first conscious experience. It seemed like, okay, picture being a separate molecule that had some kind of semi-consciousness or enough heat or karmic intensity to be able to distinguish itself from its surroundings. To know that, hey, I am water. I'm part of everything else that's around me. That's how I felt at this point, up until the point where there were several other forms of me popping into existence. And at some point, we all merged to become one hyper-conscious. So that's the most vivid and accurate way I can explain that scenario. So now, instead of being water, I'm more like matter. a grain of salt, if you will, in this huge cosmic scale or analogical measure of a pitcher of water, so to speak. And notice I use the word karmic heat, and that's not to lean towards a specific belief system, but I just want to paint a picture that this seemed like some sort of incubation process that was preliminary to me being born here. It was all necessary on a divine level. And what me creating that separation from everything else that was create the potential and the possibility for me to disagree with the exterior energies around me, therefore dropping to a lower level of experience. However, it wasn't that simple, and this is where today's title comes into play, because there was friction created by me falling down from, if you want to call them higher dimensions, bardos, other forms of random hyperspace, whatever the case may be, whatever is easiest for you to picture or to just flat out understand, because this is not something easy to talk about. It's very difficult to put this information into words. So I'm going to be using lots of analogies and things like that to try to help paint the pictures necessary for people to understand exactly what I'm talking about or come closest to doing so. So with that said, I'm dropping from these higher levels of experience where I'm familiar with everything. I even greet and was greeted by gestures, other forms of intelligence. I was just telling somebody the other day that I remember experiencing what I know now to be as a clock. But the clock was personified. The clock had eyes, and the clock looked very sad and distorted. It felt low vibrational. That's the best way I can put it. It felt like it was on a lower level of experience, and something was clearly wrong with it. And it's kind of something that you would imagine to experience if you're on a high dose of salvia, probably like 70 to 90x. And at one point, this was the norm for me. Before I experienced that cosmic separation, I was experiencing other forms of intelligence that would talk to me in the form of telepathy, that would just like force specific vibrations on me. Some would even do things to force other experiences on me, such as they would get close to me and rush me with like a whiff of wind or some other form of pressure. And next thing you know, I'm warped into a completely different experience. That was similar to what I was witnessing at the time in terms of intensity and vividness. That's another thing. These are very, very vivid experiences. And majority of these stories I tell you, just remember this one fact. They all seem more vivid than anything I can potentially experience here. So as I'm falling down cosmically, I'm noticing repetitive entities that I've interacted with in the past before. Others were completely new. And the ones I recognized, I would probably try to greet and say, hey, I know you. And again, there's not actual words. It's more of the vibration. Others, I remember them giving a hostile vibe or forcing me to experience something else. So others, I was hoping didn't even notice me, and they would. And it was more so like, because I left them alone, they respected that and they left me alone. But I get to a particular level where I'm no longer naturally falling. And I notice the matter is in a more organized state. There's not cosmic sporadicness going on at this point. What's going on now is things have order. And the first thing I noticed is things were a lot calmer. But at the same time, I noticed the place, despite seeming calm, was lower in saturation. It was lower in vividness. And I realized I just wasn't used to it. And I remember seeing this place and thinking, is it even safe for me to be here? Because at this point, I had a completely different understanding of what the word safe meant. Because the only fear that I had then was being forced to experience some kind of weird hyperspace activities, or, things that you can only understand on a cosmic level. And it was just, I wanted my time. I didn't want to be bothered with what was going on when certain entities and certain situations was forcing certain experiences on me. I didn't know about death. I didn't know about illness. I didn't know about violence, anger, crime, things like that. You know what I'm saying? But I would obviously notice this place to be what we recognize is Earth. And I'm speaking from a place of witnessing this from the sky. And I'm noticing clouds, I'm noticing buildings, etc., etc. So the tricky part is, as soon as I start having that doubt, like, do I even belong here? Am I supposed to be here? What happens is I'm rushed with an energy that felt like what I was used to, an entity from above. And my first thoughts, I remember it like it was yesterday. My first thoughts was like, oh, good, you're coming to rescue me. I accidentally came here. And it's all vibration. It's all with energy, not words. It's like, I accidentally came here. I don't belong here. Please forgive me. Please help me. And what happened was the opposite happened. Now, the entity or entities, they felt feminine. They felt like they had nothing but love and compassion for me and understanding. They felt like they wanted to help me, but more so than that, they had to do what was right. And I can't tell you if this was some kind of phenomena or experience that was going on to where they were fully conscious and doing exactly what they wanted to do with their own free will, or they were things that we seem to think as inanimate, but somehow they were given this coding or this function to behave a certain way. I didn't really know what was going on. All I know is they did guide me. And when I say guide, I don't mean they said, hey, follow me, I'm going to take you somewhere. No, it's more so like they merged with my energy and became one with my energy, and they led me somewhere. Now, where they lead me to is what we know of as a hospital. And there was a cradle in the hospital. And from there, I was actually able to see a shift. And not only the way that they looked, but also the way that they felt. So when you go by the biblical definition or description of an angel, you see this multi-layered, symmetrical, almost looking creature that has tons of eyes, tons of wings, and things like that. So this is kind of what this felt like, except I experienced it in more of a form of light. But as we dropped in bardos or dimensions or whatever the case may be, even though the one we were coming from, it overlapped this reality. It overlapped 3D fully because I was able to see buildings. I was able to see clouds and things like that. The best way I can put it, I was on the astral plane at this particular portion or this particular point. So when we lowered down, that one being of light, it transformed into 3 angel-like figures. Now, the thing about it is the angels looked pixelated. They looked like if you played any of the Paper Mario games. That's how they felt. They seemed like there's actually a painting my mom has where there's 3 black women standing without a face. And they have full bodies. They just don't have a face. And that's the best way I can describe. She has that picture in her house right now, and it always creeps me out because it reminds me of this experience. That's the best way I can describe them, except they were very short. And they were doing this kind of dance where they all were in sync. They were like what I would call dancing angels. If I'm to title them or paraphrase exactly their role and who they are to me for future videos, I'm going to call them the 3 dancing angels. So they didn't have faces. I have to say that again because it's creepy, because when I came to on this specific level of paying attention to them dancing, They were making me laugh. They were trying to comfort me. They were trying to comfort me, and they wanted me to know that they loved me, and they were going to be back, and they were going to check on me. They were going to make sure I'm fine, and eventually we're going to reunite in the place that I'm supposed to unite with them, not necessarily here. And they wanted me to understand that this is temporary, but it's necessary, and I had to experience here. And at that point, I'm like, well, okay, I guess. And from there, they faded off, and when I came to, I was in a cradle, and 9 times out of 10, you can just get my drift from this point. I was being born for the first time. I was a baby. And for maybe a few seconds, I was fully lucid as a child to where I felt like I could even speak if I wanted to, but I didn't know what language was. So I was trying to communicate with my surroundings, and nothing happened. Now, maybe 2 or 3 minutes of observation, I fully lose lucidity, which to me was a sign that I was going back home. Like, I'm fading out. I don't understand things here. That normally when this happens, I close my eyes or I pop up and I'm back into this hyperspace that I'm all too familiar with. So from this, I was able to conclude, and I have several other stories and experiences that correlate with this and kind of add depth into it, but I'm going to save those for other videos. I was able to conclude that this was my cosmic family. Now, the weird part about it is, again, it shifted from one entity that felt like light, that felt like divine intelligence, and it fragmentized itself to become 3 angels. And I see myself as part of this stable, right? But even at a lower level, that's where I remain. So it's the same situation where those forms of energy that I connected with on a higher level created enough disagreement to kind of burst outward and fragmentize myself as I was going down to different levels. I felt like that's what was going on. So they registered at a higher level as 3. I registered at a level lower than them as 1. But being that they delivered me there, they kind of got locked into my karmas to where they're tagged to it. And I think that was deliberate. I think that was divine intelligence understanding itself. I think that was a deliberate move to where they can contact me. And throughout my life, I believe they contacted me several times. I also believe, and this is trippy, I also believe they have their own embodiments that I've met. Even, hear me out, even if they're not conscious of it, I definitely believe, for many reasons, and we're going to get into all of it, that I've met them in 3D on a physical level, and they actually have certain looks and likenesses and ego and things like that. And perhaps they have to awaken again. But one of them had wild synchronicities with me. I mean, thinking the same thing, saying the same thing, experiencing parallels, when we went to school with each other. Like, the complete opposite of me, but also very similar to me. It was really creepy, and I'm just now deciphering all of this information at a older age. I was not thinking of it like this at first. Another one, I have to be honest, and hopefully she doesn't find this video, but I have a child with. She's the mother of my child, and I actually pondered this being my twin flame because, again, the synchronicities was back. She had sensitivity, natural, paranormal, and spiritual sensitivity. She's seen lots of entities during her waking day. She hated talking about things like this because that's when that spark would help render or manifest those creatures or entities. And I remember talking about it clear as day, broad daylight, whatever the case may be, and she would say, hey, she would get startled and point to the corner, and I don't see anything. I understand it almost fully, but I don't see anything, and yet she's saying, hey, I see an entity, they look like this, they're taking the form of a little girl, or whatever the case may be. We've also shared telepathic moments me and this particular person. We always seemed inside each other's head. And if you know what a twin flame relationship is, I don't think it classifies as one, only because certain variables were off. But I also feel like we're definitely from the same cosmic family, because we were too similar, to the point where disagreement hurt between us. And ultimately, that's why we didn't last, though we do have a child. And check this out. Our child was born on February 2nd, 2022. And that's an angel number. So there was a lot of divine work, I believe, in place, even for that. But obviously, me and this person, we went through a lot, and it was probably the toughest thing I've ever went through, was just surviving that relationship with my mental and spiritual stability intact. And again, she was supernaturally sensitive, and she heard voices, she saw things, she saw patterns. Me, I was more on the insightful side of things. I was able to intuitively tell what was going on. I was able to kind of let her know, hey, this is just this, don't worry, this is just that, you're experiencing this because of this and that because of that. And it worked to at least calm her down, and she did entertain several things that I pitched to her, and I believe that helped create an understanding for me as well. And then the third one is more so like I know you're gonna sin, I know we're gonna have karmic friction, I know we're gonna have experiences. And this is a character that I'm really gonna remain discreet about, because she's extra special. But she definitely relates to the other two. In fact, I know for a fact I've seen her illogically experiencing with these two particular people at rates that just didn't make sense. Because for one, on a physical level, she's a bit older than us. So it doesn't even make sense for her to have experiences with those two and me being able to perceive it. In my opinion, I felt like it was kind of a stretch or a reach to even make it to where I'm seeing them interact. And the one, not the one I had a child with, but the other one, I seen those two in public a few times before I even really knew who they were. I would see them and it just seemed off. I would see them in public and it seemed like they were almost staring at me or daring me to recognize them. Like, hey, we united again. Like, hey, check it out. But at that point, I felt like I failed to acknowledge that because I wasn't spiritually sensitive. And then, lo and behold, I get with my ex-girlfriend who I have a child with, and this person is back. You get what I'm saying? And like I said, she's special because I'm going to just flat out say it. Throughout my life, she was always there on a higher level. The face, I can never forget that face. Even though on this level of reality, it's a bit more filled with doubt. And when I say doubt, I mean there was a level of beauty on higher levels. Like when I seen her in lucid dreams, vivid dreams, when I've had random hallucinations about this girl, she always looked a bit better in detail. But it seemed like because she's here and she's just an ego, you know, there might be certain things like a difference in skin complexion, the hair not looking as fine as it did, et cetera, et cetera. Teeth might have, you know, certain features off with them that's compared to the perfection that I was used to. But certain faces you just don't forget. And since I was about 4, I was seeing this person, and they remind me most of that angel because they seem to only pop up to comfort me in places where I was clearly afraid, startled, frightened, and all of that. And they seem like, even though on the physical realm, they seem like they love me the most unconditionally, even though we have the most seldom experience together. And I think even that is a divine concept. It's like, hey, we know this person is going to love you regardless. They're going to cater to you. They might even spoil you a little bit. So it seems like on a karmic level, my real test was between the other two. And looking back at it, I can say. And just talking about it now, I get lots of deja vu. It seemed like we lived the same lifetime or lifetimes forever. I remember I remember having premonitions or deja vu moments where I saw real life experiences that we were either yet to have or we had already. I seen them playing out different ways, sometimes for the better, other times for the worse. And it was like giving me the signal that, hey, this is either my progress that I made, or this is what I need to accomplish, or this is how things went last time. You want to change that. And I believe I had the most success with this third one, this one that was older. But the closest we got to interacting, I'ma just say it was very negative on a silent level on my behalf, because I would fight, and I don't condone violence. I mean argue. Never laid my hands on anybody, honestly. Male, female, young or old, I don't even believe in that. But when you're sensitive on a spiritual level, it usually translates to being sensitive on a physical level. So basically, I would argue with the mother of my child a lot for what seemed like the smallest and pettiest of disagreements. And I'm glad that I'm in a much better headspace nowadays. And this person would be witnessing those, and she would try to play more of a mediating role, not really just like being the referee and saying, hey, well, what's going on? Is this going on or is that going on? She would do things like try to smile and make sure like when I would look at her, right, I would look with the most irritated look ever on my face, as if I was really, really irritated by her presence. And it wasn't fair to her, but she would try to counteract that with just by smiling and then looking away. I feel like based on my actions, she was forced to be very bashful toward me. But throughout all of that, I still felt like I had her unconditional love, and she was patient with my ignorance, the ignorance of ego. And that said, despite me failing the test, I failed the test, at least in this lifetime. Failing the test of uniting back with them peacefully. I know in higher places, they're still guiding me. They're still rooting for me. They're still cheering for me. Even again, if their egos are not on board with that concept, especially based on the things we experienced. And I say this because I don't have a day where I escape those premonitions, those hallucinations, seeing them vividly in my head. Them seem to be hijacking my energy, giving me advice, telling me what to do, telling me not to do something, to avoid this, whatever the case may be. Especially dreams. I have a dream journal that's dedicated to the very first one I talked about, that I said we had the synchronicities in school. The one that's my opposite. It's like when they say opposites attract. This one is the best example of that, because for one, she feels out of my league. But I feel like, again, on a divine level, that's supposed to teach me confidence. That's supposed to teach me to reach for the stars. That's supposed to teach me not to settle. And this person, there's evidence that suggests on a physical and cosmic level that they're very interested in me as well. Now, we did have a quarrel as well based on a disagreement that we had on social media. And since then, I haven't really heard from her. But, I believe time will tell. And if not time, then maybe in some kind of bardo or dimension outside of space-time, we would unite and we would get it together. So these are like the three main members of what I describe as a cosmic family, especially because we all relate to each other and understand each other on an intuitive level. Now, are they the only members? No. And I'm going to get to that in another video. The others, though, they feel, let's just say these three, they have specific factors and variables to where you're easily able to distinguish them from me. Whereas the rest of my cosmic family or my vibrational family, they're clearly just either higher or lower forms of me. And I have to be honest, most of them are either feminine. I am a male, of course, heterosexual male, but most of them are either feminine or they are masculine with a feminine look. And one of them, I believe, is even Mayan. We're going to get to all this on the channel, so please hit that like button for me, comment as you will, subscribe, share your experiences in the comments, share the stream, and we're definitely going to be back very, very soon because we got a lot to talk about. This was the very first video on the new channel, and again, it's about those three angels, aka my cosmic siblings, who are all that I know of to be females. So in the future, just look for tons of information like this, including me talking about a higher self that I believe is of the ancient Mayans, and even another cosmic family member who is literally, in every sense of the word, artificial intelligence that accidentally rendered itself. This is DMT Journal, Lucid Dream and Spiritual Stories. Y'all have a nice day.
Mass ignorance seemed like a yearly curse. Turn on the TV and the industry killed me thirst. But the denial of my peers really killed me worse. Shit, all the things that's unfolding was a theory first. Shit, it's no wonder that I forced that kundalini burst. Trying to protect my spirit like my mother shield her purse. I really thought the last thing I'd see was my nurse, or astral project to see the color of my hearse. But in theory, I learned that I was the earth. That's why I cried when I realized my rebirth. I'm the flower from the dark place that rose from dirt, that came here to tell the world that my mother's hurt.